You think you are better than everyone else, right? You sit in your room, scrolling past videos of people having a great time at parties, and you feel that quiet contempt inside. Those people, you tell yourself, how shallow they are, how loud they are, how ordinary they are. You are built for something deeper than that. You read real books. You think real thoughts. You are not like them. But what if you are not wise at all? What if that effort to be different is fake, and underneath it, you are afraid nobody would even notice you were there if you tried to join that party? Today, we are looking at a story about a guy who built his entire personality around being a misunderstood intellectual. By the end of this video, you will question your own perceived intelligence. You will be more real, my friend. So let us start with the first question. Why do we pretend we enjoy being completely alone when it actually makes us miserable? Hermann Hesse wrote Steppenwolf in 1927, and the main character, Harry Haller, is someone a very specific type of person will recognize immediately. Not because he is famous or powerful or doing anything dramatic, because he is sitting in a rented room surrounded by books, quietly despising everyone around him and feeling deeply and constantly terrible underneath all that contempt. Harry is a middle-aged intellectual. He has read everything. He knows everything about philosophy, music, literature, and history. He has ideas, very strong ideas, about what real art is and what shallow people consume instead of real art. He lives as a tenant in a clean, respectable boarding house belonging to a completely ordinary middle-class family. And here is where the book does something clever immediately. Harry judges these people. He looks at their tidy little hallways, their potted plants, their ordinary and predictable lives, and he feels superior to all of it. But he also secretly loves it. He actually finds peace in that clean hallway, in the smell of beeswax on the floors, in the quiet order of people living simple, normal lives without turning everything into a tragic philosophical drama. He would never admit this. His entire identity depends on being above it. But Hesse shows you this, right into an unacknowledged longing to belong to something so warm and simple. And why is judging other people's ordinary lives the easiest way to hide our own cowardice? Because judging is free. Judging expects nothing from you. You can sit in your room and decide the people at the party are shallow without ever walking through that door and finding out what happens. You can decide the music everyone is dancing to is mindless without ever learning to dance to it. Judging lets you feel superior without taking any of the risks real participation requires. Harry has been doing this for years, maybe for decades. And although this made him very smart about many things, it made him completely useless at being a human being in the world alongside other people. Then, Harry is wandering the city late one night, in that peculiar, miserable state of someone who has been alone with his own thoughts for far too long, and he sees a man carrying a sign advertising something called the Magic Theatre. The man gives Harry a small book, and the book is about a creature called the Steppenwolf, a German word meaning a wolf of the steppes, a wild, lonely animal belonging nowhere. And as Harry reads it, he realizes with shock that the book is about him, not metaphorically, specifically, accurately, and uncomfortably about him. What happens when the smart books we read stop making us feel intelligent and start making us feel dead inside? Because the book does not flatter Harry. It does not tell him he is a misunderstood genius waiting for a world deserving him. It tells him something much harder. It says he built a fake identity on the idea of being split between a noble, intellectual man and a dangerous wolf, two natures fighting inside him. And it says this is a lie he tells himself to feel special. The truth is, he is not made of two natures. He is made of thousands of pieces, thousands of possible selves, and he never visited most of them because he was too busy maintaining the tragic lone wolf story. And the book tells him something else. It tells him the way out of his misery is laughing, not an ironic, intellectual laugh, a real laugh. The ability to stop taking himself so seriously that every dinner becomes a philosophical crisis. Which brings us to the professor's house. Harry is invited to dinner by a man he used to know, a professor, an ordinary, pleasant social gathering. And Harry goes, because even Harry occasionally needs human contact, although he would not express it that way. And at the professor's house, on the wall, there is a portrait of a famous German writer. A portrait Harry finds aesthetically wrong and intellectually embarrassing. And instead of letting it go, instead of sitting at a dinner table and being a normal person for 2 hours, Harry blows the whole thing up. He argues. He gets angry. He probably says things that deeply disturb everyone at the table. He turns a painting on a wall into a referendum on the decay of culture. He leaves early, alone, having proven once again he is too serious and too smart for ordinary social situations. Why do we convince ourselves we are deep thinkers when we are actually afraid to participate in real life? Because participating means you might fail. Participating means people might reject you, not as a misunderstood intellectual, but as a normal person who tried and failed to connect, which is much worse. If you declare yourself above the party, you never have to learn what would happen if you went. Harry's intellectual arrogance is a very sophisticated avoidance system. It protects him from rejection by ensuring he is always the person doing the rejecting before anyone else gets the chance. After the professor disaster, Harry goes to a dark bar late at night, the kind of bar where people do not discuss philosophy, and he meets Hermine. Why does meeting someone completely opposite to us feel terrifying, yet exactly like a cure? Hermine is everything Harry is not. She is at home in the world. She laughs easily. She enjoys dancing, music, and the physical, sensory, immediate pleasures of living in a body. She does not read serious books, or at least she does not present herself that way. And she looks at Harry the way you look at a lost child standing in the rain, claiming he needs no help. With an affectionate exhaustion, she sees right through the entire performance instantly. And instead of being impressed by his intelligence or scared by his seriousness, she treats him like someone who has a lot of catching up to do. She tells him he will learn to dance. Harry hates dancing. Of course he does. Dancing is exactly the kind of mindless physical joy serious intellectuals are supposed to be above. But something happens when Hermann tells him to do it. He does it. Because nobody talked to him this directly in years, and something inside him, the part suffocating under that arrogance, reacts to her like a plant reacting to light. Why do we secretly crave the exact mindless fun we constantly mock? Because mocking is a shield, and a shield is heavy. If you wear it long enough, you forget you put it on voluntarily. You forget there was a time before the arrogance when you could have danced without needing a philosophical reason. Hermann takes the shield off piece by piece, and Harry lets her because she is the first person in a very long time making him feel taking that shield off might not be the end of him. He learns to dance. He listens to jazz. Through Hermann, he meets other people, a musician named Pablo and others, people living in their bodies, in the moment, and in the physical reality of the world instead of inside their heads. And things Harry never knew were closed begin cracking open inside him. And here is why letting go of your serious, respectable image is the hardest thing you will ever do. Because the image is not separate from you. You built it for so long, it feels like your actual personality. Harry does not know who he is without the Steppenwolf story. Without the lone wolf, without the misunderstood intellectual, without the man too serious for ordinary pleasures, if you take that away from him, he has to find out who is actually underneath. And that is genuinely terrifying. What if underneath the arrogance there is no tragic and wonderful soul, but an ordinary person who wanted to dance and was too afraid to try? Then Pablo offers Harry entry to the magic theater. This is the part where the book gets genuinely strange, and also where Hesse says what he was building up to the whole time. The magic theater is not a real place, or it is real the way dreams are real. Harry walks through a door and enters a corridor with 1,000 more doors, and behind each door is a different version of himself, a different life he could have lived, a different possibility, his rigid identity shut down. Soldier, lover, musician, criminal, saint, all of them are him. None of them are completely him. What happens when you finally step into the chaos of the real world and realize you were the joke the whole time? Because what the Magic Theater does is exactly this. It shows Harry the story he tells about himself, the two natures, the man and the wolf at war, is an extreme simplification, essentially a lie. He is not made of two opposing forces. He is made of pieces, multitudes, contradictions, refusing to resolve into a clean and dramatic narrative. The tragic lone wolf story was always too clean. Life is not that clean, people are not that clean, and Harry was fitting his true complexity into a story small enough to feel manageable. He sees versions of himself that are joyful, ridiculous, small, brave, tiny, and massive, and none of them fit that serious portrait he spent decades painting. And then he destroys it. He finds Hermine in the magic theater. She is with Pablo. And something inside Harry, that old Harry, that Harry turning everything into a tragic drama, that Harry unable to let beauty exist without turning it into something serious and painful, that version stabs the woman. He literally cannot let the thing bringing him joy exist as it is. He has to make it tragic. He has to establish control over it. He has to turn the lightness into something heavy, because the weight is the one thing he knows how to carry. Why do we destroy the things bringing us joy? Because they do not fit our tragic, serious aesthetic. Because joy threatens the identity. Harry's entire personality is built on pain and seriousness. Hermine brought him dancing, laughing, real connection, and the experience of being alive in a body instead of trapped inside a head. And that is a wonderful thing, and it is also a terrifying thing. Because if happiness is this reachable, if life is this accessible, if he could have had this by putting that arrogance aside years ago, then what was all that pain for? The pain was the story itself. Without that pain, he is not a tragic intellectual. He is someone who isolated himself unnecessarily for a very long time. So he kills the joy instead of facing this. And then the immortals laugh at him. Not cruelly, sincerely, the way you laugh at a friend being ridiculous in a way they cannot see yet. Those great artists and thinkers Harry spent his life worshipping used to justify his seriousness. They are not tragic and isolated. They are laughing. They found the lightness. They learned to hold their own contradictions without needing them to resolve into a clean, serious narrative. In the end, they became capable of the humor Harry cannot reach. Hesse's not saying art, thought, and seriousness are worthless. He is saying they turn into a prison if you cannot laugh, if you cannot dance badly in a bar and enjoy it, if you cannot be ordinary sometimes without letting it feel like a defeat. If you looked into a mirror showing your true self, would you laugh or would you break the glass? Harry would break the glass, at least at the beginning. And maybe that is where most of us are. Somewhere on the road between arrogance and that laugh, using intelligence, taste, and a serious aesthetic as a wall between ourselves and the terrifying vulnerability of actually participating and existing in a life including other people, jazz, music, dancing, and that messy, unfiltered, uncontrollable, ordinary joy we convinced ourselves we are too good for. But here is the issue. Hesse does not leave Harry completely without hope. The immortals laugh, but they do not dismiss him. They say he has to learn. Not to turn into something else, not to abandon thinking, depth, or real feelings, but to learn to hold all of this more lightly, to stop grabbing that tragic identity so tightly that nothing else can enter. To let the wolf, the man, and those thousands of other pieces coexist without needing to resolve into a clean story to wear like a badge. And let us be honest, does this not touch a specific place? To the intellectual secretly loving the pop song but unable to admit it because it does not fit the image. To the person mocking the party but feeling the emptiness of not being there. To the person judging the ordinary happiness of others from a safe, superior distance because the actual risk of pursuing it feels too exposing. We are all a little bit Harry. We all built a version of the lone wolf story. We all, at some point, confused isolation with depth, arrogance with intelligence, and the fear of rejection with being too developed for ordinary human connection. The book asks you to laugh, not at yourself in that cruel way, the way you laugh when you finally see something clearly after being confused for a long time, a relieved laugh. That laugh saying, "Oh, it was this simple all along. I was making it so much harder than it needed to be." You are not a Steppenwolf. You are not another dramatic, tragic thing clashing with another dramatic, tragic thing. You are thousands of pieces you never met most of. And some of them want to dance, some of them want to read, and some of them want to sit at a table with ordinary people in a clean hallway and feel the warmth of belonging to something simple and real. You do not have to pick the wolf. You can put it down. Learn the dance. Listen to jazz with your real ears instead of your critical brain in advance. Join that thing without deciding you are better than it. The immortals are already laughing. You might as well join them.